You are kneeling in the dust outside the gates of a city that believed its walls were eternal. The wind carries the smell of horses long before you see them. Then they appear in an endless horizon of riders, moving as if the earth itself has decided to rise and charge. No banners snapping wildly. No drums. Just disciplined silence and the thunder of hooves. You were told they were savages. Nomads. Illiterate barbarians from the far eastern steppe. Men who drank blood and worshipped the sky. You were told no empire could rise from tents and felt in wandering clans. And yet, within a single lifetime, they will build the largest contiguous land empire in human history. The riders stop beyond bowshot. They do not shout. They wait. Their patience is more terrifying than rage. You glance at your city wall sticks stone, iron-bound gates, towers stocked with arches. You believe in these walls. You believe in your rulers. You believe in the order of things. But somewhere beyond that silent line of horsemen rides a man named Genghis Khan. He was born with no throne, no army, no kingdom. As a child, he watched his father poisoned and his family abandoned to starve. He survived betrayal, slavery, hunger, and exile. Now, entire civilizations tremble at the rumor of his name. The first arrow arcs through the sky before you even register the command. By the time the gates fall, the world you know will already be gone. But here is the question history forces us to confront. How did terror become a tool, precise enough to build an empire that stretched from the Pacific Ocean to the edges of Europe? And an even darker one, was it fear alone that carried them across deserts, mountains, and kingdoms? Or was something far more sophisticated, moving beneath the thunder of hooves? Because the Mongols did not just destroy cities. They rewired the world. To understand how terror built the largest empire in history, we have to ride back to the Steppe, to a world where survival was law, loyalty was fragile, and power belonged only to those who could seize. Before the empire, there was only the steppe, an ocean of grass stretching from what is now Mongolia, across Central Asia, a land with no natural walls and no permanent borders. The sky feels larger there. The horizon feels endless. You grow up with wind in your ears, and nothing to hide behind. Life on the steppe is movement. Your home is a circular felt tent. Your wealth walks on four legs. Horses are not animals. They are extensions of your body. Children ride before they can properly walk. Every adult can shoot from the saddle at full gallop. Survival demands it. Winters kill the weak. Drought starves the careless. Neighboring clans raid without warning. Alliances are made through marriage and broken through ambition. Leadership depends on charisma and the ability to protect your people. Fail, and your followers simply leave. This is the world into which Temujin is born in the 12th century. Not yet Genghis Khan, just a boy in a fragile clan alliance. When his father is poisoned by rivals, the protection around his family collapses overnight. Former allies abandon them. They are left to forage like outcasts. Hunger becomes his first teacher. Humiliation his second. At one point, Temujin is captured and enslaved. He escapes under cover of darkness, helped by a sympathetic god. In that moment, he learns something vital. Loyalty can come from the most unexpected places if you treat people as individuals, rather than bloodlines. The steppe is brutal, but it is also adaptive. Power does not flow strictly through noble ancestry. It flows through competence. Temujin begins gathering followers, not just from his own clan, but from defeated enemies. He promotes men based on merit, not lineage. In a world defined by tribal divisions, this is revolutionary. He reorganizes society into units of 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000. Loyalty shifts from clan identity to military structure. Your immediate family becomes your unit. Discipline becomes survival. But beyond organization lies belief. The Mongols worship eternal blue sky Tengri. The heavens are not distant. They are immediate and watching. Victory is a sign of divine favor. Defeat is a sign of divine displeasure. This cosmology breeds both humility and ruthless confidence. If the sky has chosen you, hesitation is betrayal. Temujin unites fractious tribes through a mixture of diplomacy, strategic marriages, calculated generosity, and overwhelming violence. Those who submit are integrated. Those who resist are annihilated. Stories of total destruction spread faster than armies. By 1206, after defeating rival confederations, a grand assembly declares him Genghis Khan, universal ruler. But the steppe cannot feed a unified nation forever. Population growth strains resources. Ambitious warriors crave plunder and pasture land. Unity forged in war must be sustained through expansion. Beyond the grasslands lie wealthy sedentary civilizations. The Jin dynasty in northern China. The Khwarezmian Empire in Central Asia. flourishing trade cities along the Silk Road. To the Mongols, these lands are not just targets, they are opportunities. Their cavalry moves with terrifying speed. Each warrior rides multiple horses, switching mounts to preserve stamina. They travel light, living off their herds. They can cover distances that would exhaust traditional armies. Communication is equally revolutionary. Relay stations Yam posts allow messages to travel across vast territories with astonishing speed. Orders move faster than most enemies can react. When they attack, they do not simply charge blindly. They feign retreat, drawing enemies into pursuit before encircling them. They use psychological warfare with surgical precision. Survivors are sometimes released deliberately to spread stories of horror. Cities surrender without a fight because resistance has become synonymous with extinction. But the Mongols are not merely destroyers. They are pragmatic. Engineers, artisans, scribes, useful specialists, are spared and relocated. Siege technology is adopted from Chinese and Persian experts. Knowledge is absorbed, not discarded. As campaigns expand into northern China, the Mongols confront walled cities on a scale they have never seen. At first, they struggle. Steppe tactics alone are not enough. So they adapt. They conscript engineers. They learn to build catapults. They experiment with gunpowder, weapons acquired from Chinese inventors. Each conquest makes them more sophisticated. When emissaries are murdered by the Khwarezmian Shah after a trade dispute, Genghis Khan responds not with limited reprisal, but with total war. Entire cities are erased. Irrigation systems destroyed. Populations slaughtered or enslaved. Terror becomes strategic policy. The message is clear. Submission brings protection and integration into a vast trade network. Defiance brings annihilation. Under Mongol rule, trade routes across Eurasia become safer than they have been in centuries. Merchants traveled from East Asia to the Middle East under imperial protection. Ideas, technologies, religions move with them. The empire is not yet at its largest extent, but already, something unprecedented is happening. A nomadic confederation born from hunger and betrayal is transforming into a transcontinental superpower, and at its center remains a paradox. How does a society forged in mobility govern cities it once destroyed? How does an empire built on fear maintain loyalty when the conquest slows? The answers will determine whether terror remains a tool or becomes a weakness. When Genghis Khan dies in 1227, the empire does not fracture immediately. That, perhaps, is his greatest triumph. Before his death, he establishes a succession structure and codifies laws under the Yasa flexible but firm legal framework emphasizing discipline, loyalty, and collective responsibility. Yet beneath the surface, tensions simmer. The empire is divided among his sons into khanates, united in theory under a great Khan. Unity now depends not on one man's charisma, but on fragile cooperation. Between ambitious heirs, Ogedei, his third son, becomes great Khan. Campaigns resume with relentless momentum. Northern China falls. Armies surge westward into Eastern Europe. In 1241, Mongol forces defeat European coalitions at the battles of Liegnitz and Mohi. Knights in heavy armor are outmaneuvered by horse archers, who seem to appear and vanish like ghosts. Europe braces for annihilation. Then, abruptly, the advance stops. Ogedei has died. Princes must return east to elect a new great Khan. The empire's own political structure pulls its armies back from the brink of reshaping Europe entirely. It is the first sign that internal dynamics may rival external enemies. Power struggles intensify between branches of the royal family. Rivalries form between the line of Ogedei and that of Tolui. Eventually, Tolui's son, Monkey, claims the title. With him comes renewed expansion. Monkey sends his brother, Hulagu, west. The target, the Abbasid Caliphate, long a symbolic center of Islamic authority. In 1258, Baghdad falls. Libraries burn. The Tigris runs dark with ink and blood. The psychological impact is seismic. Another brother Kublai campaigns in China. He faces not only military resistance, but cultural complexity. Governing millions of sedentary farmers requires different skills than leading cavalry raids. When Monkey dies during campaign, another succession crisis erupts. Kublai declares himself Great Khan, but his brother, Arik Bok, contests the claim. Civil war fractures unity. Kublai ultimately prevails and founds the Yuan dynasty in China. Ruling from Beijing, he adopts many Chinese administrative practices, employs scholars, and positions himself as a legitimate emperor within Chinese tradition. This adaptation strengthens control over China, but distances him from the steppe aristocracy. Meanwhile, Hulag's Ilkhanate in Persia evolves separately. The Golden Horde in the western steppes follows its own path. What was once a unified storm becomes multiple power centers with diverging interests. Terror had unified expansion. Governance now demands compromise. Some Mongol rulers convert to Islam. Others patronize Buddhism. Religious tolerance, once a pragmatic policy to stabilize diverse populations, begins to create ideological distinctions between khanates. Trade flourishes under what historians call the Pax Mongolica. Marco Polo travels to Kublai Khan's court. Diplomatic envoys cross continents. Paper money circulates. Artistic motifs blend Persian, Chinese, and steppe influences. Yet beneath prosperity lies strain. Maintaining cavalry dominance becomes harder as enemies adapt. Sedentary populations outnumber Mongol elites. Tax burdens rise. Factionalism grows. In China, resentment builds against foreign rule. In Persia, financial crises strain legitimacy. In the steppes, the old nomadic lifestyle erodes as elites grow accustomed to urban luxury. The empire's strength, its vastness, becomes a liability. Communication slows across distances. Local priorities overshadow imperial unity. And then comes a microscopic enemy. The Black Death emerges in the 14th century, traveling along the very trade routes the Mongols protected. Fleas on rodents move from Central Asia toward Europe and the Middle East. Cities that once flourished under Mongol security become epicenters of devastation. The empire that connected the world also accelerates its deadliest pandemic. As populations collapse, tax bases shrink, armies weaken, rebellions ignite. In China, the Red Turban Rebellion gathers force. By 1368, the Yuan dynasty falls, replaced by the Ming. Mongol rulers retreat north, back toward the steppe. The Golden Horde fractures under internal conflict and pressure from rising powers like Muscovy. The Ilkhanate collapses without strong succession. Terror had been a weapon of expansion, but it cannot substitute for sustainable cohesion. The turning point is not a single battle. It is the slow realization that an empire built on momentum cannot outrun entropy forever. Imagine living in a city that surrendered without resistance. You wake each morning under foreign rulers who speak a different language but allow your markets to function, your religion to continue, your craft to survive. Taxes are heavy, but the roads are safe. Caravans arrive from lands you have never seen. Under Mongol administration, a merchant in Persia might trade silk from China and spices from India with fewer barriers than ever before. A Christian monk might debate a Muslim scholar under the same imperial protection. For many ordinary people, Mongol rule is not constant terror. It is pragmatic order. Yet memory does not fade easily. In regions that resisted, scars remain. Entire populations erased. Irrigation systems destroyed, turning fertile fields into dust. Survivors carry generational trauma. Stories of massacre pass from parent to child. Fear becomes part of cultural identity. Within Mongol society itself, transformation is equally profound. The children of conquerors grow up in palaces, not tents. They wear silk instead of felt. They read Chinese classics or Persian poetry. The old steppe virtues mobility, austerity, raw endurance often. Some elders see decadence, others see evolution. Women in Mongol society had traditionally wielded significant influence, managing camps and even regencies during campaigns. In the settled courts, their power shifts within more rigid bureaucratic structures. Adaptation brings both opportunity and loss. For soldiers who once rode endless horizons, garrison life inside stone cities feels suffocating. Identity fractures between nomad and ruler. As the Black Death ravages trade networks, entire towns empty, markets fall silent. The same interconnectedness that enabled prosperity now spreads catastrophe. You might be a dockworker in Crimea, watching ships arrive with crews already dying, unaware that your world is about to contract violently. In China, rebellion grows not just from political grievance, but from famine, floods, and economic hardship intensified by demographic collapse. When the Ming forces drive the Mongols north, it is not simply a change of dynasty. It is a psychological reversal. The conquerors become exiles once more. Across Central Asia, fragmented khanates struggle for legitimacy. Former vassals assert independence. Ambitious warlords carve territories from imperial remnants. Yet even in decline, Mongol influence persists. Gunpowder technology spreads westward. Diplomatic norms shift. Cartography improves as knowledge of distant lands accumulates. Artistic styles fuse across continents, and individuals navigate these changes in deeply personal ways. A Persian artisan relocated to China teaches new glazing techniques. A Mongol prince raised in Beijing writes poetry in Chinese while dreaming of grasslands he barely remembers. A Russian prince learns tribute diplomacy before eventually challenging the weakened Golden Horde. Empires collapse not in a single crash but in countless private adjustments. The Mongol Empire does not vanish overnight. It dissolves into successor states, memories, myths. For some, the Mongols remain embodiments of apocalypse. For others, they represent a rare era when Eurasia was more interconnected than ever before. Both are true. Terror built the empire, but adaptation sustained it for generations. And fragmentation, born of human ambition and structural strain, ultimately unmade it. What remains are the roads, the stories, and the altered balance of power across continents. Return to the city walls where we began. You remember the silence before the first arrow. You remember believing your world was permanent. The Mongol Empire shattered that illusion across half the known world. It demonstrated that mobility could defeat monument, that merit could outperform aristocracy, that psychological warfare could be more decisive than sheer numbers. But it also revealed something deeper. No system, no matter how vast, is immune to internal fracture. The Mongols mastered speed, communication, and adaptive warfare centuries before the modern age. They built trade networks that foreshadowed globalization. They connected cultures that had barely known each other existed. And yet, the very interconnectedness that strengthened them accelerated plague, rebellion, and fragmentation. Their story forces an uncomfortable reflection. Power built on fear can expand rapidly. But sustaining legitimacy requires more than terror. It requires institutions strong enough to outlive founders, identities flexible enough to integrate diversity, and cohesion resilient enough to withstand crisis. Today, we live in a world linked by trade routes far faster than horses' digital networks. Instead of relay stations, our systems feel permanent, our structures feel stable. History suggests otherwise. The rise of the Mongol Empire was not inevitable. Neither was its fragmentation. Both were shaped by human decisions under pressure by ambition, adaptation, rivalry, and belief. The thunder of hooves has faded, but the questions remain. How do societies balance strength with stability? When does fear become counterproductive? And if the ground beneath us began to shift, would we recognize the sound in time? The steppe wind still blows across Eurasia. It carries no empire now, only memory.